This is Havfarm, the world's largest floating salmon farm. Its official name is Jostein Albert. It's a project by Norwegian out of Norway, and the numbers alone are enough to make you stop and reread. It's 1,263 feet long, 195 feet wide. At full capacity, it can produce up to 22,000 tons of salmon in a single cycle. Line up 3 football fields end to end, and you still wouldn't match the length of a farm. This is not a fish farm in any sense you'd normally picture. But the size isn't even the most interesting part. What really matters is how the thing was built. Havfarm isn't a ship that goes out hunting fish. It's more like a stationary ocean farm, a farming platform anchored to the seafloor. The difference is that the front end uses a turret system that can actually rotate. So when the wind shifts, when the current changes, when swells roll in from a different angle, Havfarm's body swings around to face the biggest force head-on. That's called weather vaning. For something this long, that matters a lot. Open ocean wave loads get brutal when you're taking them broadside. The mooring system is no joke either. 11 heavy anchors hold this whole platform in place, each one weighing around 48,000 pounds. But Havfarm doesn't just sit there like a concrete post. The anchor lines run about 2,100 feet from the center point, and the structure itself still moves within a circular area roughly 1,475 feet across. It's anchored, but it's got a little give. It works with the ocean instead of fighting it. Below deck, 6 net pens form the core of the whole operation. Norwegian calls them 6 units, each around 2.4 million cubic feet. Each pen can go down to about 184 feet deep. These aren't shallow pools. The nets go way down, giving the fish serious vertical room. Under normal conditions, salmon density is kept at roughly 25 kilograms per 1,000 liters of water, which lines up with standard Norwegian guidelines. Most of the space is still water. The fish have room. One thing you can't see from the outside is how the seawater moves through those pens. In Vesterålen, off northern Norway, natural ocean currents constantly flush fresh water through the nets. There's no massive pump system forcing water in and out like you'd need in a land-based facility. Havfarm's design just uses what the ocean already does. The deep nets give the fish access to cooler, more oxygen-rich water further down, while the top stays open to the surface. Water conditions directly affect how fast and how healthy these fish grow, so that's not a small detail. The whole operation runs more like an industrial facility than a farm. The feeding system works automatically from a central control setup, pushing feed to each pen based on what the fish actually need. There's a service unit that rides along a rail.
The feeding system works automatically from a central control setup, pushing feed to each pen based on what the fish actually need. There's a service unit that rides along a rail system, so the crew can reach work areas without hopping on a small boat every time. All production conditions can be monitored in real time from the platform or from a control center back on land. On the power side, Havfarm draws from the main grid rather than running purely off onboard generators. The generators are still there as backup. Sounds like a small thing, but when you've got millions of salmon in those nets, power is the lifeblood of the whole operation. Feeding systems, cameras, comms, pumps, controls, all of it needs a steady, uninterrupted supply. A long outage isn't just a technical headache. DNV lists crew capacity at around 10 people, with room for up to 12 during visits or temporary work. This isn't a platform built for a large crew. It's a technical work site with a specific job: take care of the fish, monitor the systems, handle the equipment. The structure is enormous, but the headcount is small because automation handles a lot of the work. Getting Havfarm to Norway was an operation by itself. The structure was too big to sail on its own. After being built at Yantai Raffles offshore shipyard in China, it was transported by the Boca Vanguard, a heavy-lift semi-submersible ship made for moving extreme-sized ocean structures. Boca Vanguard partially submerges, Havfarm gets positioned on top, and the carrier rises back up and hauls it on its back for the whole voyage. At one point, Havfarm, nearly 4 football fields long, was riding on top of another ship across the ocean. Once it arrived, it was positioned near Hadsaloya in the Vesterålen archipelago off northern Norway. If HOV Farm looks like a long, rigid steel ship, Ocean Farm 1 looks completely different. From a distance, it looks like a massive steel cage with part of its body sitting below the waterline. It's round, about 226 feet tall, 360 feet across, with a growing volume of roughly 8.8 million cubic feet. It belongs to SalMar, and it's considered one of the first offshore fish farms actually purpose-built for open water. Ocean Farm 1 was shipped from Qingdao, China, to Norway in 2017. Its design uses a semi-submersible approach, a structure where most of the mass works below the surface to stay stable. The nets are on the inside, and the top section has a work area for operators, equipment, service access, and fish handling systems. It borrows heavily from the offshore industry. It's not just an oversized round pen. Inside, the growing space can hold around 1.5 million salmon in a single production cycle, with one cycle running roughly 14 months. The fish aren't crammed in. They live in a large cylindrical habitat where seawater moves in and out continuously through the net structure. Fish get room to move while operators monitor growth and conditions from above. The round shape isn't an aesthetic choice. A cylindrical structure handles loads coming from all directions more efficiently than a boxy or rectangular one. Out in open water, waves and currents don't pick a favorite direction. A round shape spreads that pressure more evenly across the whole structure. Same principle behind submarine hull design and high-pressure tanks. Ocean Farm 1 scaled that logic up to something far bigger. The automation on Ocean Farm 1 is worth talking about. Reports mention tens of thousands of sensors handling monitoring and feeding. Those sensors read water conditions, fish movement, feeding response, and operational status. Feed is one of the biggest costs in production, so you can't just blast pellets into the water and hope for the best. The system needs to know when the fish are actively eating, how much is going in, and when to cut back. Underwater cameras are part of the setup too. Operators can watch what's happening with the fish in real time, track how feed spreads through the pen, and catch problems early. At a normal fish farm, that kind of check usually means sending a diver down or lowering a camera by hand. At Ocean Farm 1, most of it gets done from the control room up top. Global Maritime, the project's main engineering partner, was in from the start: design, shipyard selection, construction, systems integration, transport, and installation. They've said one of the biggest challenges was making fish handling actually work inside a habitat that size. Building a massive cage is one thing. Making it so fish can be raised, monitored, moved, and harvested safely inside it is a completely different problem. In 2020, DNV gave Ocean Farm 1 its first offshore fish farming installation class certificate for this type of structure. That means the project went through the same engineering verification process as any other offshore installation, not just treated as a big tank that floats. On crew, earlier sources say day-to-day operations can run around 3 to 7 people under normal conditions. Automation carries a lot of the load, but this isn't an unmanned facility. During maintenance, harvest, or inspection, headcount and support vessels both go up. Better way to say it, the people on board are working alongside systems that are much bigger than they are. If you had to describe Ocean Farm 1 in one line, it's somewhere between a fish pen, a small oil platform, and a research station all rolled into one. Then there's Ocean Ark from OTEC, and this one goes in a completely different direction. Havfarm and Ocean Farm 1 are both up and running in Norway. Ocean Ark is still in the design stage. It's received an approval in principle from RINA, meaning the basic design cleared a concept-level review from a classification body, but it's not in the same category as the other two. Ocean Ark doesn't want to be anchored to one spot. It's designed as a trimaran, a main hull with 2 outriggers that add width and stability. Around 558 to 571 feet long, 197 to 210 feet wide. Shorter than Havfarm, but still massive for a fish farm that can actually move. The trimaran shape isn't random. Those two side hulls give it far better lateral stability than a single hull vessel. For a platform carrying thousands of tons of live biomass, stability isn't about comfort. It's about whether the pens and all the systems inside can keep working when the water gets rough. Trimarans are wider, but that trade-off pays off. The ride is steadier and more predictable in open water. The core idea is simple. A fish farm doesn't have to stay in one place. Ocean Ark is designed to seek out better water conditions for the fish. Its systems read oxygen levels, temperature, pH, salinity, and other variables that affect fish health. Because it has its own propulsion, it can slowly move away from bad conditions, low oxygen zones, algae blooms, red tides, rough weather. Top speed is around 3 to 4 knots. Not fast, but enough to relocate the farm to somewhere better, and it does all of that without a permanent anchor. That's what separates it from both platforms we just covered. It's not a floating cage. It's closer to a production vessel that brings the fish farm along with it. The nets use a copper alloy mesh, a blend of copper and zinc. Wire diameter is about 4 mm with openings roughly 1.5 inches square. Copper alloy handles biofouling better, holds up structurally, and cuts down on how often the nets need cleaning. According to OTC, these nets can go 6 to 8 years without replacement. Out in open water, that's a significant advantage. Cleaning and replacing nets offshore is a lot harder than doing it nearshore. Pen configuration can run as 8 cages at roughly 883,000 cubic feet each or 4 larger cages at around 1.77 million cubic feet. Biomass capacity sits between 4,000 and 5,000 tons per cycle. The design is still evolving, so those numbers may shift, but the point stands. Ocean Ark is built for large-scale production while keeping water volume high and density manageable. Feed storage comes in at around 450 tons, good for roughly 20 to 25 days without resupply. Crew capacity runs between 6 and 20 people, depending on what's going on operationally. There's an electro-hydraulic crane for deck work, a docking area for support vessels, and a helipad for inspections or emergencies. This isn't just a cage with an engine bolted on. It's designed like a seagoing work unit that can stay well offshore for weeks at a stretch. Inside, the pens, feed storage, work deck, crane, crew quarters, and navigation systems all share one platform. The crew can run fish production the same way you'd run a long-haul vessel operation. The ship moves slowly, feed is stored on board, the crew lives on it, and the systems track water conditions the whole way. Propulsion runs on a diesel-electric setup with 3 4,000 kilowatt engines. Not for speed, for station keeping, slow repositioning, and getting clear of unfavorable conditions. The movements need to be smooth and steady so the pens don't turn into a rough environment for the fish inside. In an ideal setup, Ocean Ark runs autonomous or close to it with a minimal crew. AI systems handle water monitoring, routing, and production continuity. But in real-world maritime operations, autonomous doesn't mean the humans disappear. It means routine decisions get handled by the system while the crew stays on top of maintenance and steps in when the situation calls for it. Each of these platforms has its own identity. Havfarm is a long, heavy structure anchored in place, built for high-volume salmon production. Ocean Farm 1 is a compact, round offshore cage, one of the earliest semi-submersible salmon installations purpose-built for open water. Ocean Ark is a mobile farm vessel designed to break free from the idea of a fixed location entirely. 3 different approaches, same goal. What's probably most striking about all 3 isn't the specs or the systems, it's what they look like. None of them look like a fish farm. Havfarm looks like a steel barge with no bow. Ocean Farm 1 looks like an offshore installation that happens to have nets inside. Ocean Ark looks like a working superyacht with a fish operation tucked underneath the deck. But the mission is the same across all 3. Give fish somewhere to live, deliver feed on a precise schedule, keep close tabs on the water, and keep the whole operation running far from shore. This is not fish farming the way most people picture it. This is offshore engineering with salmon inside.